The Ottawa Charge win Game 3 of Round 2 of the Walter Cup Finals to stay alive. They win 2-1. The series is 2-1. I mean, what a game. What a game. So another finals game. They scored 2 goals. Takes them a little while to get on the board. This is interesting for Game 4. Obviously, I'm happy about it, and I'm going to get even more to why I'm happy in a bit about some specific players who I'm sure you can predict who I'm going to talk about. But while I'd like more goals than 2. I don't think 2 is going to be enough. Look, you can win a game or maybe 2 by scoring just 2. I really do think that we're going to need to score 3 goals next game. And if we can force Game 5. But at the same time, we scored 2 goals in what, 4.5 minutes ish. We scored quickly. We scored with 5:30 left and with 54 seconds left. And then the game ended. So there is some semblance of hope that, hey, maybe this is the start of momentum. And not just momentum in terms of, the series, it's still very much alive. We're still in it. But also, we scored 2 goals late. The lasting memory of this game, 2 quick goals. Now, to be fair, lasting memory of Game 1 was 2 quick goals from Montreal, albeit with an intermission in between, but a goal with 2 seconds and then 2 minutes in overtime. But I think this does provide some hope that, hey, scoring 2 late goals in quick succession, maybe you can find a bit more of that scoring touch. Maybe you can find a little bit more of that je ne sais quoi that we're going to need if we want to win Game 4 and force a winner take all Game 5. Also, the Ottawa Charge have now played in a finals game that did not end in overtime. It only took us 7 games. But that's good. It's good. We won regulation. It took us to the very last minute of regulation, or a real, 11th hour, or in this case, 59th minute goal. But a win is a win, and a regulation win is a regulation win. I talked about how angry I would have been if we lost in overtime. Okay, I will. No matter, I'll be angry if we lose again this season. Obviously, I want to win the cup. But this, okay, at least you won a game in regulation. Okay, check box. Last thing I want to talk about is the refs, because I'm aware that I was pretty rough on them in my previous video. I would argue justifiably so, and I think it's my duty as somebody who is a commentator in PWHL spaces to spotlight when the refs honestly did a decent job. Yeah, this was a finals game where I think, especially after the first 2 games, there was maybe a heightened sense of emotion in terms of how the reffing is going to be done. And look, don't get me wrong, there were times. But this game was relatively decent in terms of the calls. There was maybe one soft call all game, and even then it was a penalty. Ottawa taking the first 2 penalties, definitely Greco taking a trip in the first period. Like that I think was very raw for oh wow, because if I recall correctly, it's Greco that got tripped in Game 2, and then in Game 1, that's the first penalty. Again, it feels a little raw. Wow, now it's a penalty. But also, it is a penalty. The upsetting part is that it didn't get called last time, and this time it does, but it is a penalty. All the penalties that got called were pretty clearly penalties. And while I will say there were a few that probably should have been called, I found this game had a lot more of what I talked about, putting the whistles away without necessarily not calling anything, right? Putting the whistles away are like when two players kind of collide in mid-ice. And it is intentional, but it's kind of intentional on both players' parts. And in the regular season, one, maybe both of them will get called for interference. And in the finals, you ran into each other. Play on. And I'm okay with that. I think most people are okay with that, right? Like, okay, like, we can all deep down kind of feel like, well, if there's a penalty in the regular season, there should be a penalty in the playoffs. Like, a penalty is a penalty is a penalty. But there's that, and then there's not calling blatant trips, blatant high sticks, blatant cross checks. That's what happened a lot more in game 2. And again, I say this not just as a Charge fan. It's like, oh no, we got stolen of a win. Like, Montreal fans in game 2, they were booing the refs quite loudly for good reason. We were getting away with a lot more than we should have. This game, I don't feel like we got away with too much. I don't think that Montreal got away with too much. Here and there, but find me a perfectly reffed game in any league. I dare you. I double dog dare you. You won't. So credit where credit is due. I thought that this game, the calls were consistent. The calls were pretty fair and even on both sides. I felt comfortable where I could say, when we committed a penalty, I trusted that if Montreal did the same thing, they would get called. And I trusted that if Montreal or Ottawa did something that warranted a penalty, that really blatantly, obviously warranted a penalty, it would get called. And that there might be a missed call here or there, but that was just the inherent nature of sport and not an intentional swallowing of whistles. And that's how it felt in game 2. Like, oh, we're just not going to call it because it's finals and we don't want to call it. This felt like the refs had control of the game, but not too much control of the game. This was a really good finals game. Right? I thought game 1, good final. Like, it sucks as a Charge fan, but if you are trying to get somebody into the league, that is a good game to show them. Game 2, I wouldn't show them. I would skip game 2. I'd just say, yeah, Montreal won game 2. You don't need to see it. This game that was just played, this is a good game to show them. Like I said, nationally televised. Federal holiday in Canada. Probably a decent amount of eyes on this game. Good, because this was PWHL. Honestly, this is a finals level performance. 2 of the best teams in the league duking it out for ultimate supremacy, and they're both playing expertly. That is what you want to see out of a finals match in any league. In any league, this is what you want your finals to look like. This was so much better. And so to the refs of this game, my hats are off to you. Because, and I was even thinking towards the end, like, win or lose, barring something crazy happening, they've done well. Something crazy almost happened, and obviously the right call was made. You know, would have been way more controversial, but we'll get into that. So, this game was, yet again, a storyline of goaltenders. Phillips and Desbièges just battling each other to the very end. I think shots were 28 apiece at the end of it. Both goaltenders with exceptional save percentages. Phillips with 27 saves, Desbièges with 26. Desbièges was the third star, and Phillips the second, respectively. They played great. That's been the story of this series. You know, it does feel like that could be what ultimately decides who wins the Walter Cup. Goaltending. And tonight, Phillips was one save better. All series, it's come down to who's one save better. Tonight, it was Phillips. Phillips was one save better. That's all we needed. And I'm happy to report that this time, when we desperately needed someone to show up, we had that happen. Phillips, the one goal she lets in, it's not a power play goal for Montreal, but Ottawa takes a penalty. It's a penalty. And especially, I believe it was the hook. And there was a play earlier, it was in the second period. Emily Clark might have had a chance at a breakaway. And this is why Poulet is the greatest player in the world, let me tell you. Poulet hooks her, obviously. It is a hook. There's no doubt about it. But it's also the kind of hook that you're supposed to take. Because if Poulet doesn't do that, Clark has a step. And it's a breakaway. And our power play hadn't looked too hot. We had a 5-on-3. We had an extended 5-on-3. And we kept passing the puck to the corner. I hate that. Okay? If you've got a 5-on-3, all 5 of your players should be in a position to take a feasible shot. Because they've got 3 players defending. You need to be able to constantly have them question, are you going to shoot or pass? Because they can only block so many lanes when they only have 3 players. But when you're in the corner, you're not going to shoot the puck. It's just a question of who you're passing to. It's a matter of figuring that out. If you're at the point, as an example, you got 3 choices. Pass it up, pass it to the side, take a shot. Much easier to get the defender to blow their coverage. Fake a pass one way, pass over here. Wind up, fake the shot, make a pass. When you are so far in the corner that a shot is unrealistic, it's like it takes away from some of the threat. And also, I thought we could, again, net front presence would have been nice. So Poulin does this with that context in mind, right? Our power play, the structure looks good. The output, not so much. Desbiens did have to make some big saves on that 5-on-3, but in my opinion, not as big as maybe they should have been. And in that situation, in the finals, tied game 0-0, you want the goaltender to really have to put herself on the line, to stretch herself thin. And I felt like we just didn't do that enough. There was only one time where I thought that we really did a good job of completely stretching Desbiens out thin and having a good shot, and it just not working. And it was, there were Montreal defenders who basically was probably the best save of the game, if I'm being honest, where, Desbiens down, we have a wide open shot, and we take it, and it's good, and it's on the net, and the Montreal defenders are just there. Almost like they're blocking a soccer kick, like a free kick. And that's something where it didn't go in, but we did everything right. We did everything you're supposed to do in that situation. We took Desbiens out. This is just an exceptional play. And Montreal was also a victim of this. There was a time where Phillips down on the ice, and I've seen it before where the goaltender's down on the ice, and they're stretched, their pads are out. So the one thing you can't do is just slide it across the ice, because then it'll hit their pads or it'll hit their skate. And it's like, just elevate it. That happened in game 4 against the Frost, or the Fleet, where we had almost no chance of making a save. And they just didn't elevate the puck. And it's like, it's a great save by Phillips that she stretched out and was at least able to get the pad there. But also, if that puck gets elevated, it probably goes in the net. And now I have to say probably, because this puck gets elevated and Phillips is basically wholly lying on the ice, and she still gets up and catches the puck and gets it onto her pad. I mean, just one of the best saves I've ever seen in person. Oh my God. Maybe one of the best saves I've ever seen. Just period. Oh my goodness. Again, the goaltending was great. But on the 5-on-3, I felt like we didn't do enough to put Desbiens in situations like that. Situations where she needs to make just amazing saves. And on a 5-on-3 that's about a minute and a half long, you should expect 2 or 3 instances like that, where she not only has to make a save, she needs to make a crazy save, or you score a goal. So Poulin takes a smart penalty. And in the third, called for a hook. It's a hook. It's very similar to what happened against Clark. I think it was called a hold, but in any case, I look up, I see the replay, and I'm like, that's a penalty. And that's how I felt this game. That's a penalty. That's a good call. I'm not happy about it, but that's the right call. And I sit there and I think, if this is the goal that ends our season and gives the Walter Cup to Montreal, I can't be mad. My video is not going to be, oh man, they called a penalty against us and that's completely unfair because when they score, it's not a... No, I would say, well, you know what, this is a penalty and you need to call it. The only thing that would have made me really mad is if Montreal scored on what was a very soft call, a very light call. Then I'd be like, wait a minute. So you mean to tell me that blatant trip, we're not going to call that good goal, but then this is the Walter Cup winning goal? And that never really happened. There was never really a situation where I was like, this is so blatantly, so obviously not a penalty. And you called it. And our penalty kill is good. We kill it off, but it's one of those things where right after you kill it off, like maybe a second or two, they score. On just a bad bounce, good save, but the rebound's right there for Haley Skamura, of course, former Ottawa Charge, to score and give the Victoire the lead and potentially end the Charge's season. After the first 2 periods, I really did think that the first goal would be the last. Certainly the winner. I thought, maybe we'd see an empty net. And I saw the time, and I was like, yeah, maybe we get one. Maybe we could win it in overtime. I was actually gearing up for either a loss or, okay, another overtime. Like, we're going to have to stomach this again, and it's going to be so nerve-wracking, and it's going to be awful. And as time was going down, I was at the game with my father, and I was saying to him, look, I think that they need to pull the goalie with like 2.5 minutes. You know, I think that we have just been struggling to score, and at this point, play with reckless abandon. Like, your season's on the line. You just need a goal. You just need a goal. So, you know, if they score again, like, the season's over. Like, and I said to my dad, with about 6 minutes left, 6.5, I was like, look, I could maybe see us scoring one. I don't see us scoring 2 goals in 6 minutes. So if Montreal scores at all, like, that's it. Season's over. So I think that at this point, like, we need to be getting ready for an early pull, because a goal at all ends our season. If we're in the defensive zone and they score, like, that's it. Lights out. So we need to score, and we need to score quick. And then with 5.5 to go, Peyton Hemp scores. It's a snipe. It's a great shot. You know, this is what you want to see. A depth player scoring the goal that needs to be scored to keep the season alive at least a little bit longer. Time keeps going. Ottawa's got a bit more pep in their step. And I found right after the Montreal goal, I thought we were discombobulated. Our passes were not clean. They were bobbling off of our sticks. There were a lot of just... Calling them takeaways is not accurate. They were real giveaways. I mean, I'm talking straight up gifts to Montreal, just with a little bow on top. Here you go. Here's the puck right in our zone. And this led into my belief that maybe we should pull the goalie early, because I thought we just weren't communicating well. We weren't organized. We were not looking like a team that was going to put up a fight in the Walter Cup finals, let alone have a chance at winning it. But as time goes on, gets better. It starts with the first line. Wozniewicz, Jenner, Leslie. I felt that when their line came on after the Montreal goal, it kind of settled things down a bit. They set the tone and they set the pace for what we needed the rest of the way. And oh boy, did they. Because Wozovich takes a shot, the puck goes up. Jenner can't get to it, thankfully. And Rebecca Leslie, hometown hero, scores 2-1 with under a minute to go. This time, after a late Rebecca Leslie goal, we are able to hold on to the lead. The game ends. We win 2-1. And now I need to talk about that last goal. Firstly, Wozniewicz scored the only goal for the Charge in Game 2. Gets the assist here. Scored in Game 4 against the Fleet to open the scoring. She's delivered. She's an offensive player who thus far in the postseason, I can say it's delivered. Obviously, Katarova has. I really would like to see her get something going in the finals, but she's done well. Savolainen, defender. She's up and down the points sheet. Same with Gabby Hughes this postseason. So, I know I've talked about we need offense, but these players have, certainly throughout the postseason, and even a bit through the finals, been good. And then you have Rebecca Leslie, the only player who has been this consistent in the finals. 3 goals this year, and a goal last year. In 7 games in her career in the finals, she has 4 goals. That's nuts. That is the production that we need. Opens the scoring in finals history for the Ottawa Charge. Game 1 against the Frost, a game they go on to win. Opens the scoring in our second finals. Ultimately, we do lose, but she gets 2. And then in Game 3, season on the line, at home, CTC, over 16,000, almost 17,000 fans. She scores the game winner with under a minute to go. That is, I mean, she has to be protected for expansion. Like, there's now, I think, in my mind, no question. If she isn't protected, what are we even doing here? She has the most goals this year, regular season and playoffs combined. 18. More than Panic, who can't catch her, by the way. That is a huge moment. Nearly gets robbed from us. Brianne Jenner. I don't think she even touched the puck. It goes to review for a hand pass. And this is where I say refs got it right. Now, I know refs don't make the call in the review, but nonetheless, if the puck touching Jenner's pinky finger by a micrometer got this goal called back after what happened last game, I don't think there would be a safe bus out of Ottawa for the refs, even though refs don't make the decision. This would be a call coming from headquarters. Even though that's the case, that's the kind of thing that would, I mean, look, I know what online discourse has been. This would 100% fuel the flames of all the conspiracy theorists who think that the PWHL wants the Victoire to win, has a bias in favor of the Victoires, is just doing whatever they can to make sure Poulet and Stacey get their Walter Cup. If that goal gets called back, that would do it. That would do it for a lot of people. That would be the the fix is in. Made the right call. She absolutely is not directing it with her hand at all. I don't even think she touches the puck. I get it, you need to review it. If she did direct it with her hand, that's not fair. Took a little long for the review, but we got the right call. Now, the last thing I want to quickly talk about before I know this video's gone on, but this is important. I mentioned it a little bit earlier. 16,894. That's how many fans packed the CTC. That's pretty close to a sellout for what was relatively short notice. And that's huge. I mean, I was there. Most sections were completely full. There were, by my count, I think there were 3 or 4 sections where I was like, I could see some pockets. And other than that, full. Full. Rebecca Leslie doing something that is beyond trailblazing. I don't even know if there's a term for it. Her scoring that goal as the hometown hero in the finals in this venue, in front of this crowd. That fulfills a dream that a lot of young women, young girls, haven't had a realistic chance at. Look, when I was a little kid, what was my dream, right? It's Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals. Your local Ottawa fan shoots. He scores. The Sens win. Right? That would be the dream. Maybe that's not going to happen now. I'm still available, free agent, Ottawa, if you're listening. But I don't think it's going to happen. But that's the dream, right? And what happens? 16, 17, 18, 19, 20,000 fans lose their minds in the finals. The game-winning goal with a minute left. And as a girl, that dream isn't nearly as realistic. That you're going to score a goal with a minute left in the finals and 17,000 fans lose their minds. And Rebecca Leslie lived that dream. She proved that dream can become a reality to every girl at that game. They have the hometown hero where they can dream that one day the Ottawa Charge will be the team they play for, and in front of 17,000 fans, they will score the biggest goal in team history. That is meaningful. That is impactful. That is what this league is all about. And the numbers don't lie. You can't say, oh, no one watches women hockey, really? Because I was at the CTC. And that was a little more than no one. And I saw something, came across my For You page of a professional women's hockey game at the CTC just a few years ago. Pre-PWHL. I saw how barren it looked. In Ottawa, we love hockey. We love women's hockey. That is the difference. That is what this league means. It's the difference between, like barely anyone showed up, to you're going to be stuck in traffic for the next hour just trying to leave the parking lot. That goal was the loudest I've heard the CTC in a very long time. Yeah, I'm including the Sanderson goal. Yeah. That means something. And I can just conclude with one thing. If it is true that the Charger are moving to the CTC next year, which could be the case, if we pull off the impossible, if we win Game 4, we win Game 5, I wouldn't be surprised if the banner raising is in front of a sellout crowd. I wouldn't be surprised. Ottawa's waited a long time for a championship in, hockey, just in general. I don't think an Ottawa hockey team has won a championship in my lifetime. I don't think so. So believe me, we're starved. This means something. It's 2 more. Fight's not over. So if you want to see my reactions to the rest of the series, which is thankfully not done, please like, please comment, please subscribe. And as always, go Ottawa.